So what builds your brand is you communicating your value to your audiences and you being unique, making yourself look different, and stop getting inspirations from the same brand as you are, but start getting inspiration from everywhere else. Food content, food businesses. If you're a beauty brand, get some inspiration from food businesses and see how you can translate what they're doing into a beauty brand. You know what I mean? And so this is how you become a little bit more different than anyone else that is in your competitive field.
Hi, and welcome to the Bright Minds of eCommerce podcast. I'm Dahna, founder of Bright Red Marketing, and I created this podcast because I wanted to bring you the best advice from Australian experts in e-commerce and e-commerce store owners. If you're wanting relatable stories and actionable advice and the latest Facebook advertising strategies, you're in the right place. So let's get into today's episode. Hi, and welcome to the Bright Minds of eCommerce podcast. Today we're here with Catherine from CollabArts. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Dahna, for having me here.
So good to have you on the show. So let's just jump straight in. Why is consistency and branding so important to your product photography?
It is definitely 100% important because when brands come to me, photography is basically at the bottom end of marketing. And when I say bottom end, they already have their own branding in place. They already have their own color scheme. They already have everything set up before they go down towards photography. So in order for us to be consistent with your branding, how you want to be perceived to other people, how you want your brand to look in front of a lot of people, we need to understand what they are so then we can reflect that into photography. So just like a brief example, if a brand wants to look like a luxury brand, immediately all their brandings are luxury, but if you don't understand that in photos, let's say if the photos doesn't look or speak luxury, it's not going to communicate your brand value. It's not going to communicate your brand identity or your brand message. And more or less, your audiences are going to feel like, I don't understand this. They're saying they're luxury, but it doesn't really show that they're luxury. And I see this a lot with small business owners, especially when they're still starting their brand. And no shame to a lot of business owners that are just trying to get themselves out there. But it is it's a different perspective from a consumer when they open a website and the prices are $40 for a hair clip, for example, or $40 for a skincare product, but the photos are shot on an iPhone and it doesn't have good lighting, it doesn't have good angle, it doesn't speak $40. When I go into websites like that, I would think immediately, I can buy this product for $5 out in the market. Why would I buy $40 online in a product, in a brand that I don't think I can trust because they haven't invested enough in their photography, but why are they billing me $40 for a single product? Yeah. So that's that misconnection that a lot of brands have in terms of their photography, is that if they want to communicate luxury, they need to build the trust within their audiences to know and understand at first glance that this brand is luxury.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think we see it obviously all the time in ads where there's that disconnect, and you can have that disconnect in your photography, you can have that disconnect in your ads, you can have that disconnect in your email. Like, you really need to make sure that the message that you're trying to sell matches across the board. Now, obviously, whenever a new brand is starting, they don't always have huge budgets to get professional shots. And oftentimes people are starting out with their phones and things. Do you have any tips on how to get a more professional quality image if you are in the stage where you do need to DIY?
Yes. So a lot of the times the biggest misconception of photography is that the camera is the best asset that you have for photography, when it's not. You can absolutely take photos from your iPhone and make it look 100% professional. And you can't even tell if this is shot in a DSLR or in an iPhone. And I kid you not, the DSLRs that you've had like probably 10 years ago, iPhones have better cameras than that at the moment. It's just because iPhones have developed their technology a lot better now. So you can definitely take photos from your iPhone, but look into lighting, because lighting is definitely the best asset that you're going to have in terms of photography and videos. Because if you nail your lighting, you're going to have good photos, you're going to have good videos that looks professional. And if you also just understand how to manipulate light and how light behaves onto your product and how to angle your camera better, that it looks like it's professional.
Yeah, I love that because, like, we all know, like you and I have started businesses. When you start a business, sometimes at the start, money can be a little bit tight. So it's good to know that there's options. And I think that's like lighting is so important. Like, even when we get photos from clients, sometimes, like, you can tell the well-lit shots from the not. Like, it just, that bright poppiness that you get is just, it's beautiful. In saying that, we have noticed, especially in ads, that there is a real need for both in terms of UGC kind of content, which by nature and definition looks a lot more organic, to professional imagery. There's a need and a place for both. In terms of your experience, because I know that you also do UGC, what's the difference between the two and where do you use both of those?
Right. So I love this question so much because I get asked by this a lot. And there was literally one client that asked me and jumped on me and said, why would I do a professional video that will cost me around $3,000 to $6,000 when I can just get people to do a UGC? And this is the answer to that. UGC at the end of the day is your testimonial video. It is definitely 100% important for your business because you need authenticity in your business. And that is how you build trust as well. But going back into what I mentioned earlier, that when people go into your website and you don't have professional images, you don't have professional video, they lack the trust that you are legit. They lack the trust that you are invested in your business. So for example, if let's say NARS or Mecca, who is billing us probably $50,000 for a skincare product, right? And we only see UGC videos of them. Would we trust to buy $50 for a skincare product? No. Right. And even if you go on retailers as well, if you want to get stocked on Mecca, they're not going to look at your UGC. They're going to look at your professional branding. And that is why they go hand in hand together. So in your website, it is important that you have professional branding because that is the last point. That is your storefront. I want you, and I think you know this as a digital marketer, the website is basically this generation's storefront for businesses. It is where customers go in and have a look at your products and everything that you've got, and it needs to look staged. It needs to look professional because when you go into a store, you would like to feel the brand's essence in a store. You would want it to be designed, like you compare that to going, for example, like Asia. When you go in Asia or in Bali and they have like markets on the street and just like stamping all the products all around, the trust becomes different. When you go to places like that, when they didn't invest in good signs or good graphic design or a really lavish storefront, you're going to expect that the products that they're selling is around $5, or maybe they're selling fake makeup products because why is it in there? You know what I mean? So especially for beauty brands, when they're trying to sell makeup, they want it to be a little bit of a high-end store. The store is clean, the store is professional, and that is exactly the same logic that you use in terms of websites. So you wouldn't want to have photos that doesn't look professional to be in a website because that is your storefront. That is basically the price point that you're telling your clients. This is how much it's going to cost, and it's reflected visually.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, obviously in ads, we use both and there is differences in how they perform, but you're right. The UGC is very much in that trust building space and the social proof of a product that other people use it. And the professional is we're a legit brand. Look at how good it can look. So I appreciate your perspective. Now, I know in your work, especially, one of the things that you do so well is playing with product texture. I know you specialize in beauty, so you'll have lots of products where you can see the foundation texture, you can see the creams and those sorts of things. Obviously, there's a huge amount of skill involved in that. But if someone wants to DIY those kind of shots, how do they go about doing something like that?
Textures, I love working with this one. I just basically love how liquid moves. And I think that's where like for me, it looks so sexy. And you can definitely replicate that seriously with an iPhone. Like I said, always go back with lighting, always know how lighting works, but I'm going to go deep dive into the specifics of it.
Please.
Generally, you would want to have a main light. So your main light source, if you are still starting out, would probably sunlight. That is your best main light source because you don't have anything that you can work with. But still, I would recommend that even if you have like a main light source already, have some supplements around it. So even if I'm shooting under natural light, I would have another fill light. We call that fill light in photography. I would have another fill light that would fill the light in my face. So I want brands to think about generally how sunlight behaves in a photo or in a subject, for example. For example, with me, if I am standing outside on a sunny day, that sunlight is going to cast shadows all around my face. It's going to create sharp shadows. So the shape of my nose is going to be clearly seen because it's creating sharp shadows on my face. It's the same with products. So if you have a product under a sunny day, a sunny weather where there's no clouds, you are going to get sharp shadows. And sometimes that is what we want. And you see that a lot with product photos where you can literally see the shape of the object or the product onto the background or onto where it's standing at the moment. And that's what a sunny sort of weather creates. Now, if you want to have a softer shadow, you would want to be under a cloudy condition. Cloudy, overcast is a good sort of indication that you can get softer shadows on your subject. So that means you can barely even see the shape of the shadow. You wouldn't even see a lot of shadows if you don't have much light. And that's the principle of natural lighting. And it goes the same with artificial light as well. So let's say, for example, you've had enough budget, you can invest in a little bit of lighting. If you are getting a light and it doesn't have a modifier, so a modifier means it's a softbox. And if people go onto my Instagram pages, they will see that I have this really big, it's a big round box that I put over my light. That is a softbox. Now, the job of that softbox is basically like a cloud. It covers the light source, it covers the sun, and it makes the shadows softer. And that is how you make it soft. But if you remove that softbox and you have a bare bulb, we call that a bare bulb, then that means you have a stronger light and you will get more shadows. And it really depends on what you try to achieve. Now, in terms of texture, I really love textures with less shadows, just because it's the way liquid is moving. It's curvy lines. And the way I see it, it's curvy lines, it's soft, it's mellow, it's not like popping and strong, if that makes sense. So I really, really like the look of a soft texture. And to achieve that look of a soft texture, you need to have a softer light. And it really is just playing around with it and knowing what emotions you want to convey in your photos. And I think this is the question I ask brands a lot when they jump in an inquiry call with me. What is the emotion that you want to portray? Because if you want an emotion of like really strong superhero image, then that is where we communicate that with strong lighting. The angles that we're going to be using is also strong. But if you want something soft, something humble, something like very feminine, then it would also have a different type of approach. And so you always think about it in a way, how is my customer going to perceive this product? So going back when I said, if you want like a strong product hero, this is a trick that I would give to you that I've learned in film school, because I graduated in a film school, that when you work with angles, they give out different types of emotions. So when you want a stronger image, you want your product to look superior like a superhero, you would want your camera angle going lower. So if your product is in the middle, for example, your camera angle is a little lower than that, because you are giving the audiences the perspective that the product is higher than them.
Fascinating.
Does that make sense? So it looks like, you see their superhero movies. When they land, the camera is in a low angle, right? Right? The camera is a low angle because the directors are trying to make you feel inferior to them, that they are this superior character.
Would never have thought of then putting that into your product photography. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's the same principle. It is literally just the same principle. Now, if you want your product to look a little bit inferior, sometimes it is the case, sometimes you just want your products to be humble. And then you move your angle a little bit higher. So then the perspective of the customer, they're a little bit higher than the product. They feel a little bit more superior than the product. And so that is how you kind of portray all these different emotions into your photos. And like, you are probably passive about this when you watch a movie, but I am telling you right now that it is all psychologically driven to make you feel something. And my partner and I would laugh at this so much because every time we watch a movie, I would basically ruin the ending because I can guess what's going to happen. And that is literally coming from my background of film, understanding what they're trying to say. And they actually give out what the ending is going to be in very minute details in each scene.
So what I'm hearing from this is don't go to film school if you ever want to enjoy a movie because you'll know what's happening.
Basically.
That's so clever. Is there any other, like, obviously I really love look up at the product and make it feel looking down at it. Is there any other, because that I think is really clever and not something I've ever heard spoken about before?
Yes, there are a lot of different things as well, like in terms of lighting as well. So like I said, when you light something really sharp with sharp shadows, you're making it look like it's really strong and powerful. When you light it softer, you also make it look like it's soft. Another trick for that one is the way you contrast the colors as well. So the biggest thing about film is the contrast. You need the subject to pop against the backdrop. And the most common theme that filmmakers do whenever they do movies or shot some scenes is that they have a teal against, am I saying this right? It's warm and blue. So it's like blue and orange, the way I see it. I forgot the terminology. But it's blue and orange. And because orange is majority our skin tones, it's usually what we portray. And this is what I'm doing like right now. If you can see in my video as we're doing this, I have a blue background and I have my skin tone is orange and my light on my skin is white. And that is usually how you would do a film sort of scene or a shot. How do you do that in photography? So in photography, you also need to contrast something. And a lot of the times when your product is, for example, pink, your background could be also blue. Does that make sense? Because they are two colors that contrast so much with each other. But also it all comes down in your own branding. Is blue a part of your branding? Because we can't do that if blue isn't a part of your branding. You have to be mindful as well on all the different aspects of your brand and what you can play around. There are multiple different color schemes out there. What do you call this? Like how you partner colors together.
It's like the color wheel, right? Like the contrasting colors on the color wheel.
Yes, exactly. And the most common thing that a lot of brands know is the contrasting color, but sometimes they can be very strong. Another one is the monochromatic color scheme, which is basically whatever the color of the product is. If it's pink, everything in the scene is going to be pink. Everything, the background, the props, everything is going to be pink. That is monochromatic. Another thing is a split complementary. So let's go to complementary first. Let's go back to that later. Complementary is basically the nearest color of the color scheme. So in the color wheel, for example, if your product is pink, what is the nearest color beside pink? It could be red, it could be orange. Further around yellow. So what split complementary color scheme is that you pair your colors with another color that contrasts it. It's like a triangle. If you go into the color wheel, it looks like a triangle. So if your product is pink, it goes well with yellow. And what is the contrasting color of that? Blue or green. You know what I mean? And that's how you kind of pair everything together. Now, this is a really fun subject to talk about because there's no.
I feel like we can talk about this for hours. We don't have hours.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's not rules, and don't look at it as rules. You can always play around with you can break the rules, and I think that is the fun part about being in the art industry is that you can literally break those rules and no, nothing's going to happen, but you can actually make fun of it. But they are general ideas that is friendly to everyone and how everyone kind of perceives beauty in a way. Because if you pair these colors up, it's a little bit friendly to our brands. Like, yeah, they work well together, like they don't look tacky, if that makes sense. So that's how you kind of play around with it. So I really, really do suggest, I can talk about this for hours. There's so many tips and tricks. But if a brand wants to do a DIY, that they research not on cameras, but more on how to light their products and art. Because art is basically where you kind of get inspiration from a lot of people. So don't copy other brands' photos and whatnot. Don't look for inspiration then. Look for inspiration on art. Look at still life art. And you can actually, if you Google that, still life, it's like STILL and then life art, you can look at inspirations of some paintings that you can actually apply on your product photos. And that is where I get majority of my inspirations from, is from paintings and artworks that people have done in the past. And then how do you translate that into photography? And that is how you can make yourself unique. Because a lot of the times, and we are so guilty of this, even sometimes me, when a brand comes to me with reference photos of other brands' photos that they want it to look like this, obviously we're going to have to create that to make it look like the photos that they sent us. But if you actually start getting your inspirations from art and from paintings, from everyday life, you are going to make your content a little bit more different and make it pop.
I love that so much. So something that I know I struggle with, and I know a lot of customers struggle with, is that once you've got a photo shoot, whether you've paid someone, you've done your professional shoot, or you've gone through and you've DIY'd something, is you end up with a lot of really great images. And then it's like, how do I actually make the most of these images? Do you have any sort of tips and tricks on how to reuse these images, repurpose them? Like, say someone came to you and they paid for 10 photos. How do you make the most out of those photos?
Yeah, I totally get you, because a lot of people think, okay, I've got this one image, I can only post it once. A lot of people have already seen this.
Exactly. Like, you're like, what do I do with it now? It costs me a lot more money than just posting once on socials.
Exactly. But I think we need to stop thinking about it like that. And I reuse so much of my content from time to time because they're just good content. And a lot of the times when you post something on social media, not everyone is going to see it. Not everyone is going to have a look at that or even notice it. They're going to forget about it, right? So you kind of have to dull it in their face that, hey, this is a great photo from our product or from our brand. You know what I mean? The way you can actually repurpose that is in so many things. You can use it as a background. You can use it in your email marketing. You can use it in your website. You can use it in a billboard. And I feel like a lot of brands don't actually know this. You can actually pay a billboard company. I can't remember exactly what that company is, but you can pay a billboard company for 10 cents per 7 seconds that it appears in the digital billboard. It only appears at 7 seconds, but you pay 10 cents per 7 seconds.
That's
right?
crazy.
Yeah. It depends on how many times you want to appear in a day. You want to spend $1, it can probably appear 10 times a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cheap to get into digital billboard these days. And a lot of brands are not exploring that capacity. And I feel like a lot of brands are also thinking, oh, we can't measure billboard. It's traditional marketing. But why is McDonald's still doing billboards? Why are big brands out there still doing billboards? Because it just works. It gives you that repetition within your clients or customers' mind that, hey, they exist. You know, when I see a McDonald's somewhere, I'm not even hungry. I'm not even craving for McDonald's. But whenever I see a photo of McDonald's or an advert of McDonald's, immediately I go, I feel like a cheeseburger. Know what I
Yeah.
mean?
How they get you. Then when you're doing a road trip and then you see the sign and McDonald's in 2 kilometers and you're like, damn it.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing about marketing as well. When you have photos repeatedly going out there, it basically shouts, hey, it's me again. Hey, it's me again. It just builds familiarity within your customer's brain.
I say it's like 7 points of contact to make a sale. And that was 10, 15 years ago. So surely it's like 500 now, considering how much content we all consume.
Yeah. Exactly. My videos as well. So let's say if you have a video, you can cut some scenes inside that video and make it its own type of video. A lot of the brands that I've worked with Beatbox in the past, that they've cut down my video into different scenes. Recently, I worked with an American brand and they inserted some meme into an old video that I created. So it is actually really funny because that video is like a texture, we've got like a texture of the product and it looks so sexy and smooth. And so they inserted like a meme of, I think it was Liam Hemsworth, that was like looking at this like, wow, that make it look sexy. And it's actually funny. So that's one way you can repurpose. There's so many ways. You just need to be creative.
Yeah, I love that so much. Are you seeing any sort of upcoming trends in the photography, videography space for e-commerce brands that we should know about?
I love this. 3D. Not a lot of people are doing this. I know it's not exactly product photography, but that is where the industry is going to move forward to. It is going to be a lot more in the 3D space, especially that Apple Vision Pro has now been launched. And I know a lot of people are saying, I can't wear that Apple Vision Pro. It's too expensive. It's too bulky. It's not even practical. Yes, at the moment, it's not. It's the same thing at how we have box computers that we can't even carry everywhere. We're not going to use everywhere. There's no point using that computer. But look at us now. We've developed our technology. We basically carrying computers on our pockets every single time. We have our digital phones now. So it is going to be the future. And I think brands need to step up their game a little bit because I want them to imagine that the future is going to look like people are actually going to go into their digital VR store and they're going to feel like they can touch the product, that the actual website is an actual storefront, that they have shelves all around, that they have products that they can touch and look. And the commercials are actually full on from head to foot, that they can see, they can be immersed in their own commercials and make their audiences feel like they are the commercial. So that is going to be the future. Definitely not happening at this moment that we're talking about.
But something you need to start thinking about. Like if you want to be ahead of the game, these are the kinds of things you need to be aware of.
Exactly. And a lot of brands are going into it. You see a lot of brands doing like an AR type of video where they're dropping some products onto the streets or they're stopping traffic. That's not reality.
I love, was it the lipstick one where the bus went around drawing lipstick? I thought that was real.
Yeah. So we're seeing it happening now at the moment. It's just the beginning of it. There's going to be so much. And the way I see it, the future is going to be like we're going into someone's website and it's going to be an exact storefront.
Oh, so cool. It's crazy to think about. Now, it's too early to be talking about Black Friday, but it's never too early to be talking about Black Friday. If people want to start prepping their content, make sure they've got enough for Black Friday, do you have any suggestions on how to get enough content and make the most of it?
I love this question because a lot of the brands are very passive. Sorry, not sorry to say this, but let's be frank. A lot of the brands are very passive. We know Black Friday is coming. We know Christmas is coming. We know all these holiday seasons are coming and the big e-commerce events are coming, but we never plan until a month before that event is coming, right? And this is what I always tell brands, that they need to plan ahead. And we know these things are coming. The best way to plan it is the months of January and February, because these 2 months are the quietest in retail. You don't have a lot of things going on in there. And so you need to put that time into planning what your campaign is going to look like, because you already know Christmas is going to come. I plan out my entire yearly campaign. What am I doing? What's the campaign that I'm doing for Mental Health Awareness Month? What is my business doing for Black Friday? What am I doing for Christmas? I kind of have that on the back of her head. Obviously, not all the assets are going to be ready just yet, but it is all in the back of my head. If I need help, let's say if a brand need help in creating all these plans that they have, then they can get quotes from that and budget that from the beginning of the year so that they don't run out of budget.
More time. So hire a photographer like yourself. You can't just call you up in October and be like, hi, I want to shoot for Black Friday. Like, it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't, because a lot of the times we get booked out 2 months ahead, especially during that time, during the busy times. I think I had one person that called me on the first week of December, and then she wants the content immediately before Christmas. I'm like, oh, no, we're full. We can't do that. We're actually, we should have planned this 2 months ago. So that is just one great example that you know these things are coming. This is not a surprise. It happens every single year. So plan it during your slow weeks and then schedule ahead. So get quotes, budget it. And I think a lot of brands also budget on the beginning of the year. They set out the budgets the beginning of the year. So include that in your budgets.
I love that. Do you have any best e-commerce tips before we start to wrap up?
E-commerce deep into it, let's say in terms of photos and videos, I would definitely give someone a tip where you have to have a mixture of content. You have to play around with it as well. You have to constantly be different, if that makes sense. So don't just copy any other brands. And I see that a lot, a lot of brands are doing trending dances or stuff that doesn't really benefit the brand as much, except for gaining likes and engagement. That's a passive sort of benefit, but it's not building their brand. So what builds your brand is you communicating your value to your audiences and you being unique, making yourself look different, and stop getting inspirations from the same brand as you are, but start getting inspiration from everywhere else. Food content, food businesses. If you're a beauty brand, get some inspiration from food businesses and see how you can translate what they're doing into a beauty brand. You know what I mean? And so this is how you become a little bit more different than anyone else that is in your competitive field.
Yeah, I love that. And that's how you avoid everyone looking exactly the same. If you're trying to get your inspiration from everyone, it's just this like spiral of we're all doing exactly the same thing. Be the trendsetter.
Exactly.
Lovely. Is there anything you think we've missed before we wrap up?
That is basically it. There's so many things that I can talk about, and I've learned this for over 10 years now, and I'm still trying to learn so much from it. So you can't really put everything in an hour.
No, it's not possible. It's not possible.
These are the basics of what you can basically get. And if you want to do some research more, look into lighting, stop looking into cameras, because only look into cameras when you are professional, when you know all the basics. And then, yes, a camera can definitely help you lift up the quality of your content, but it's just the screen quality. Actual work goes into the art and the lighting.
Yeah, amazing. I'll ask last couple of questions we ask everyone. Do you have a favorite podcast other than yours, which we'll give you a chance to talk about in a second?
I do have a favorite podcast. It's called The Diary of the CEO, and I just love. I know a lot of brands probably heard this. It's the most listened podcast.
Doesn't make it any less good. Do you have a favorite business book?
I do actually. I've got so many favorite books. I'm a book reader, but I think one thing that I really, really love that I've read 3 times already is called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. If you are in a product-based industry, you probably think this is not for me, this is for hospitality, but it is so much about business. It is not just about the service industry. It's about making your mark. Even if you're selling products, you are still in the service industry. You're still servicing the people and the customers that are buying your products on your website. So this book just really helps you uplift that service and helps you become different from any other brands out there that is very transactional with how they service their customers.
Yeah, I love that. Now, do you have any strategies or habits that you follow each day in business to help you stay on track?
I think my biggest strategy is self-care in general. I love using my meditation every single morning, moving my body, going for a walk every single morning. And I religiously do that because it really sets me up, my mind, and get ready for the entire day.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, tell us a little bit about how people can visit you, including your podcast. And I believe you've got a special offer for our listeners.
Yeah, awesome. I also have a podcast helping beauty brands build their own businesses. I interview Dahna, of course, and some other professionals that just knows their craft on helping beauty brands. And so that you can actually do it yourself, or you can also get an idea or a glimpse on how to start a brand without the cost of consultations from business coaches and whatnot. And I've interviewed a lot of business coaches. It's really valuable. It's called Building Beauty Brands Podcast. And if you go on Spotify, you can see Building Beauty Brands Podcast in there. If you want to work with me, my website is collabarts.com.au. I'm just going to spell that for you. CollaBarts.com.au. And I've got a special offer for the listeners in here. It is a 10% discount on all our services, product photography, product video, 3D videos, and all that kind of stuff. We will give you a 10% discount on your project.
Thank you very much. Please do check out Catherine's work. She is phenomenal at what she does. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dahna, for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Bright Minds of eCommerce podcast. As always, you'll find the show notes at brightredmarketing.com.au/podcast. Thanks for listening.